So now we're going to move back from our how many fingers game, and we're going to go back into our playgrounds and find out about loops. So think back again to the Twitter clone that I mentioned a couple of videos ago and ask yourself how you would write the code to display all of those tweets. You don't want to write the code out separately for each tweet, that would be madness. So what you have is something called a loop, which allows you to run the same piece of code several times and, for example, display all of those tweets. Now there are two types of loops, and the first one that I'm going to show you is called the while loop, and it works like this. So we usually start with a variable, which is often called I. It's going to be our counting variable as we go through the loop, and we'll set it initially equal to 1. It could be anything, but 1's a good starting point. And then we're going to use the while command, and we're going to keep going as long as I is less than 10. So next to the while command, we put our condition that has to be true for the loop to continue. And then each time the loop goes round, we're going to add 1 to I, which we can do using I equals I plus 1. And now you can see that that happens 9 times. And if we then printed the value of I each time to the console, then we'll see that we start off with I is equal to 1, and then each time we go through this loop, 1 is added to I. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We don't get 10 because this loop continues as long as I is less than 10. If we wanted to include the 10, we would change the command to I is less than or equal to 10, and then that's included. So that's the idea of a basic while loop. We can use an abbreviated form of I equals I plus 1, which is I plus equals 1. And that does exactly the same thing, but it's a little bit neater. You may have seen in previous versions of Swift or other languages the command I++, which in many languages does the same thing as I plus equals 1, but that has been taken out of Swift 3. So if you want to increment I, increase it by 1, you need to use I plus equals 1. Okay, quick challenge then. Can you use a while loop to display the first 20 numbers in the 7 times table? Simple as that. So starting at 7, ending with 140. Can you display the first 20 numbers in the 7 times table using a while loop? Go for it. Did you manage it? Should be fairly straightforward. We'll set our I variable back to 1 again. And then we want the first 20 numbers. So I'm going to keep going as long as I is less than 20. I'm going to add 1 to I each time. And then the only major change I need to make from what we did before was to multiply I by 7 each time when we print it. And there we go. So now we get 7, 14, 21, 28, etc. all the way to 140. Another way to have done it would have been to keep going as long as I is less than or equal to 140, and then just print I, and then add 7 to I every time. And then we need to change the starting point to 7, and then we'll get the same effect. So either way round gives us the 7 times table. Another challenge for you. This time I'm going to set up an array. So it's going to be just a very simple array of some random numbers or integers. There we go. And I want you to use a while loop to add 1 to each of the values in the array. Now that's quite tricky. see if you can figure out how to do it. Good luck. Did you manage it? I hope so. We're going to start by setting I as 0 this time, because the first item in the array is the 0th item. And then we're going to keep going as long as I is less than, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items in the array. So we could put when I is less than 6, and that would work fine. But a slightly fancier way of doing it would be to keep going as long as I is less than array.count, which will give us the same number, but this code would then automatically adapt if I added extra numbers in, and I wouldn't have to manually change that number there. So then, as before, we'll add 1 to I each time, and if we want to add 1 to each of the values in the array, we just use array I plus equals 1. And of course, you may have spotted this yourself, we'll need to set array to a var to allow that to work. And then let's just quickly check. If we print the value of the array at the end, we should have 8, 24, 99, 2, 1, and 764. And there you go. There it is. So we can use while loops to just loop through chunks of code on their own, or we can loop through an array and do something with each of the elements in the array. Great. That's all you need to know about while loops for now. In the next video, we're going to go on and look at for loops and see why they are generally the better choice for doing this sort of loops when we're looping through an array and getting all of the values out. See how to do that in the next video.